Welcome, bienvenue to Why Living in France Can Cost Half as Much with Adrian Leeds. The Fédération des Alliances Françaises USA allows us all to learn French, live French, and love French at afusa.org. AFUSA is the largest Alliance Française network in the world, helping 25,000 learners of French each year, again, learn French, live French, and love everything French. Stay tuned for some upcoming national events. Go to afusa.org to hear about our French Cinematheque next Monday. We have a wonderful D-Day program, an interview with Martin Walker, and many events coming up. So again, afusa.org is the go-to website for French events. We are thrilled to welcome back Adrian Leeds. Adrian has lived in France for over 29 years. She is an HGTV personality regular on House Hunters International. She runs and owns the Adrian Leeds Group, a licensed real estate agency, property consultation, and services. Welcome, Adrian.
Oh, thank you, Renee. How wonderful to be here. And I love to see all these smiling faces. And this is going to be so much fun because we're going to talk about how much money you're going to save by living in France. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, share my screen and my presentation. See if I can yay, there it is. I hope everybody can see it. So we're going to find out why living in France can cost half as much. Here we go. Just to give you a brief idea of who we are property consultants, and we work primarily for the buyer or the renter, actually. We call ourselves French Property the American Way because we are for Americans, and I say North Americans, by Americans. We are a licensed real estate agency in France, and our services include property consultation and search, sales and listings. We can actually assist someone in making a purchase or a sale. We do appraisals. We find financing resources. We have resources for renovation and decoration. And we actually provide an awful lot of resources that have to do with immigration and all the things you would need to make your move to France from soup to nuts. The reason we exist is primarily because there's no multiple listing service in France. That means that you can't go to one agent and have access to all properties. That's how this started. But the process in France is different. The laws are different. The language we know is different. And if you haven't been studying at the Alliance Française, you better start. The currency is different. The culture is decidedly different. And everything you encounter is different. So we help make this transition over. Now, just to get an idea about cost of living, I want you to know that you could go onto the web and you can look at an awful lot of these websites and find cost of living comparisons country to country. But I think if you do that, you might actually get confused. So, and I want to make one really important note. These comparisons that we're going to talk about today do not talk about any income tax you might pay on revenue that is generated in France, okay? But you also need to know that the best tax treaty in all of Europe is between the US and France, not the other countries. So when it comes to paying taxes, you're going to get the best deal with France than you're going to get just about anywhere. The photo on this, housing in France costs 34% less than the US. That's Tula Rampont from International Living. And that's an article she wrote. It's the very first link in the top of this slide. So, and it's a really great article. So if you have a chance, be sure to read it. Okay, today we are going to talk about 10 jaw-dropping cost savings. First of all, the property to rent or purchase. Why that can be much less expensive than the US. Property taxes. Utilities, gas and electricity. Phone, TV, and internet services. Your homeowner insurance. Your homeowner association fees. Groceries, restaurants and dining out. Healthcare, public transportation. I pulled these 10 together because I think that these are your primary cost of living expenses. And I'm sure there are other little things, but this is what comes out of your pocket more than anything else. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Okay, let's talk about property rent or purchase. Number one is that the most expensive property in France is Paris, and Paris is about double any other city in France. There are other cities that are even a quarter the price of Paris, but just know that Paris is double just about anything else. Now, if you look at this chart, you're going to see that Paris is all the way at the bottom with $12,698.93, which is the average per square meter price of a property in Paris. And compare that with New York's, which is $17,702.15. So we're talking that New York is actually 40% more expensive than Paris. So even though Paris is double the cost of any other city in France, New York is still 40% more expensive, and a lot of other cities are more expensive as well. So when people say Paris is expensive, sure it is, but it's not the most expensive in the world by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, I know this chart is a little difficult to read because the numbers are kind of small on the left side. And the left two columns are price per square meter for a purchase, and the two right columns are the price per square meter for a rental. And as you can see, Paris is the most expensive. If you look at the map, just know that you can see the red colors and the orange colors are the most expensive areas of France. So Paris, which that little dot in the north is, you know, of course, expensive. And the other areas of France, which are somewhat similar, are in the south along the Riviera and on the east close to Germany. So because this is being recorded, you can take your time later to really study this. But we're still, you know, it's more affordable than just about any US city. The average monthly rent per square meter for rental apartments in Paris, on the average for a one bedroom, is $1,454 per month, compared to New York's $4,151. And if you're looking at a three bedroom apartment, Paris will cost you $33.59, and New York will cost you $84.33. So that means that New York costs 2.5 to 3 times what Paris would cost. And of course, the purchase, we already looked at that, 40% more. Now, I want to make the point that property is your biggest expense. Everything else is going to be fairly comparable all across the country. So all the other expenses we're going to talk about will be similar, whether you're living in Paris or Nice or Bordeaux or Strasbourg, it won't matter. Property is your single most expensive expense. You're just going to love this one. I love to talk about property taxes because I find that overall, whenever I ask a client how much their property taxes are, it ends up being about 10 times what I pay. It's shocking. Now, there are two taxes that you pay annually. One is taxe d'habitation and the other is taxe foncière. Taxe d'habitation is paid by people who have a secondary residence, not a primary residence. If you have a primary residence in France, you don't pay the taxe d'habitation. So the taxe foncière is what we're talking about. And both taxes are approximately 10 to 20 euros per square meter per year. So I'm going to give you the real figures. My 2-bedroom apartment in the 3rd district in Paris, last year, I paid 957 euros for a property that's worth about €1 million. I mean, so it ended up 1470 per square meter. My 1-bedroom apartment in Nice, I paid 636 euros, only $18.24 per square meter. Compare that with what you're paying in the United States on property taxes. So this is a huge savings. Property tax rate in the US stands at 1.10% of the value of the home. The average home value, according to Zillow, is 346,270, and therefore the bill is 3,803. That's a lot more than I'm paying, and that's the overall average for the United States. Now, you consider California. California is really a highly taxed state. And according to smartasset.com, an LA home valued at $1 million would pay $7,500 a year in property taxes. That is 7.3 times higher than what I pay for the same valued property. Imagine how much you can save. Okay, utilities. Well, electricity is a little more expensive in France than it is in the US per kilowatt. It is 21 cents per kilowatt compared to 18 cents per kilowatt. But would you believe that the US uses 10 times more than France per capita? I mean, I think it's unbelievable. And that is because France really has done everything in its power to be as efficient and economical and ecological as possible. Even appliances are designed to use less energy. So, for example, my niece apartment, which is a one-bedroom apartment, my monthly bill is literally 66.39 euros, which is 70. The dollar rate, by the way, that I used at the time when I did this presentation was $1.786. That's the rate of exchange that I used. So approximately $1.08. And so you can get an idea of what the dollar to euro amount is. Now, I am in that apartment about 50% of the year, but when I'm there, I run what's called a mini split in the US. We call it a reversible. It's a heat and AC, and I'm there. I use it 100% of the time. So I think that's really reasonable. You guys are going to love this. This is not a joke, because everybody I talk to tells me that their internet and their TV and their telephone cost them at least $200 a month. And when I tell you that you can do that here for 30 euros a month, it is not a joke. Free started it. The company's called Free. It's free.fr. You can go online and find it for yourself. They started this whole thing, and then all the other companies had to come on. They created a triple play package with the TV, high-speed internet, and the phone, and they offered it at a really low rate, and they just broke the market open. And it's a really good service, and I highly recommend it. But even better than this is the telephone. You can add a telephone, a cell phone, and I promise you this is true. I pulled this right off their site. For $9.99 a month, you can have a cell phone to over 100 destinations free of charge. And you're going to love this. It's even better. When you travel to those countries, it's free in that country and it's free back to France. So when I travel with my French cell phone to the United States or all over Europe, it doesn't cost me a penny more. And I know you cannot do that without having some international plan with, I don't know, T-Mobile or Cox or whoever, but I know you can't do it as cheap as this. Okay, homeowner insurance. How much do you pay for homeowner insurance? When you're in an apartment building, a condo building in France, the building insures the building, so you really only have to insure your own contents in effect. So therefore, the insurance costs are really, really low. The average insurance is 372 euros or 400 a year. I pay 460 because it depends on, the level of how much you're insuring for. In the US, the average homeowner insurance costs $19.15 or about $160 a month. So you've just saved yourself a whole ton of money. Homeowner association fees. If you're in a condo, you're going to pay homeowner association fees. And according to OSCAR, the Observatoire National des Charges de Copropriété de l'Arc, The fees in France are about 50 euros per square meter per year. Okay, so square meter, for those who probably are going to ask me, what does that mean? It's 10.76 square feet. So if you use 11, you multiply by 11, which is close, you'll get an idea of what that is in square feet. I used to own a co-op in the West Village in New York that my daughter lived in, and the annual dues were $540 per square meter, 10 times what it costs us to own and operate here in France. Groceries. Average American household spends an average of $475 a month on groceries, according to the most recently available data set from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. That same thing in France, $330. Now, I pulled this very recently that France, compared to other countries in Europe, actually ranks 11th. It is still not the most expensive European country either. But aside from the cost, I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to get a much higher quality product. So you're going to eat better and you're going to enjoy it more. Dining out. I was in the States a couple of months ago, and I have to tell you, I was really shocked. By the time you add tax and tip, which is at least another 25, 30% of what it says on the menu, my lunches were $50. It was really hard to find anything decent to eat for less than that. And for those of you who know, I eat out just about twice a day. And I go to Cafe Charlot just about every day. And that burger, sitting right there, that's Cafe Charlot's burger. And it's not cheap. It's 24 euros. But that includes the tax and tip. So when I've had a really fabulous lunch there, and I've had my coffee, and I've got tax and tip on it, I walk out for about $30. And it's fabulous. So I don't know, ask yourself, when was the last time you had as good a meal as that for that price? Okay, I hope all of you guys are sitting down because we're going to talk about healthcare. The healthcare system in France will cost you 1/10 of what it costs you in the US. When you become a resident in France, and this is once you have your visa, after 90 days of having your visa, you can apply to be on the French healthcare system. France will pay up to 70% of your healthcare costs, even though you never paid into the system. And you're going to love this. A doctor's visit in France costs about $28.50 before you're reimbursed. And if you go to a specialist, it might be about $54. Okay, and that's without even being on the system. Now you're going to love this part too. The government will refund patients up to 70%. But when you have a costly or long-term ailment, something horrible, like heart disease, cancer, things like that, they pay 100% of your costs. 100%. Now, you can top it up. You can top it up with a mutual insurance policy. So before I talk about the mutual, though, I just want to make a special note here, because I just want you to sort of understand that the problem with healthcare in the United States is that it's based on profit. The sicker you are, the more money everybody makes. So the system actually works against you having good health. Whereas in France, because it's government supported, the healthier you are, the more money they save. So they believe in preventive medicine, which the US insurance companies don't believe in and won't cover. So this is really a big deal because you're going to get much better care. Now, with the mutual policy, you can top it up totally. And some plans are as little as 10 euros a month for a supplementary health policy. I have one of the best policies in the business. It's 100% coverage with no deductible. I am 71 years old, and my premium is a little over $2,000 a year to have complete coverage. Last year I did the math and I saved as much money by using the French healthcare system as my mutuelle cost me. So I saw it as a wash. And if you want to see the official healthcare costs, there's a link right here in the bottom of the screen. You can go to that website and that'll give you all the actual details of the healthcare costs. Public transportation. I'll bet most of you haven't even been on a public bus or train in the United States. But in France, the network is amazing, okay? It features 146 kilometers of roads, 6.2 kilometers of rail lines, 100 square kilometers. The network, they call it like a web that comes mostly out of Paris. I highly recommend getting rid of your car. Your car, according to AAA, costs you about 12,000 bucks a year to own and operate. And if you're living in a city that has good public transportation in France, which they all do, any of the smaller cities or larger cities, you really do not need a car. If you are living in a little village, if you are living in the countryside, yep, you will need a car. But if you're in a city like Paris or Nice or Lyon or Strasbourg, you will not need a car and you can save all that money. Just think about how many trips you can take all over Europe for 12 grand. A lot. So dump the car. And especially if you're older, maybe you don't want to drive anymore. Driving a car is risky. I can tell you, I haven't owned a car in 30 years and I don't miss it one bit. You also have such amazing public transportation in these cities, okay, that also offer all sorts of savings, especially for seniors. SNCF, the train system in France, for 49 euros a year, I buy a senior card and I get a 30% discount on all of my tickets. And you can change them, you can alter them whenever you want. It's just absolutely fantastic. And most of the cities offer even senior discounts on the metro, on the buses, whatever. So if you're over the age of 60, you score big time. This bus pictured in this photograph happens to be the new 600 bus that goes from Nice all the way to Menton and back. And I believe the cost of it is €1.70. Is that right, Patty?
It's 2.50.
Oh, excuse me, it's €2.50. Okay. To go to go all the way from Nice to Menton, it's an hour and a half. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that it's only going to cost you about half to live in France. It means your retirement, your pensions are going to go a lot further. And your quality of life is going to go a lot higher. So how do you say no to that? I don't know. By the way, this is a list of all the sources I have used to find this information. I do not promise that every figure is exact, but my personal information that I'm sharing with you today that is 100% true and accurate. So it gives you at least a good comparison. And just so you understand how we make a difference here, what we do is we represent only your interests. We don't represent our own pocketbook. That is not our goal. We search for property on your behalf as a renter or a buyer. We provide all the resources, soup to nuts, that you need. We help you do the due diligence and advise along the way so that you don't need any expensive translations, although you should be getting your French up to speed. We manage the process from beginning to end, and we think of it as a kind of insurance because we try our best to not let a client make a bad decision. It is easier than you think, you guys. This is not difficult. We have helped thousands of people move to France. It all starts with a consultation, either with myself or one of my senior staff members. We believe in getting good advice, whether with us or with any of the professionals that we can put you in touch with. And please don't let fear get in the way of your dreams to make this happen. And while you're at it, replace the word expectations for hopes so that you will never be disappointed. Now, we try to offer a lot. We have 3 newsletters a week that you can subscribe to. They are free of charge. You can unsubscribe at any time if you feel overwhelmed. You can see us on House Hunters International. I have filmed 56 shows. I'm about to film my 57th. We run a coffee gathering once a month in Paris and every other month in Nice called Après-Midi, where there's always a speaker, and they are free and open to everyone. You can always book a consultation, as I said before, and of course, participate in webinars such as this so you can learn a lot. We also have a YouTube channel so you can rewatch them, and you can go to our YouTube channel and find a whole slew of things. So, and all that information is there absolutely free of charge. And now I'm going to open this up to a Q&A. So I hope you've been putting your questions in the chat box. Patty Sadoskas, who's here with me, is going to monitor those and ask away, and hopefully we'll be able to answer as many as possible. What have you got, Patty?
We have a couple of questions regarding contributions to cover your health care for Puma.
You mean
And
the cost of the contributions?
the cost of the contributions.
Okay, well, when you apply, okay, so you're not going to pay anything into Puma at all. The French government is supposed to assess you a small percentage based on your earnings, but I don't know a single person who has ever been assessed or paid it. Do you, Patty?
Well, actually, I was assessed because I do earn some income in the US. And the one bill I've had in 9 years was for 200 euros. And the
What was it
tax
based on?
advisor, well, I'm sure it was based on my US income that was not retirement income. The tax advisor I was working with actually said I did not owe it, but for 200 euros, it wasn't worth arguing about.
Okay.
So my decision was to give France her 200 euros and not worry about it.
Okay, that just happened recently, I believe, actually, right?
Fairly recently, yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
What's
now there's
next?
a whole bunch of questions coming in. Oh, here's another healthcare related question. How does the French medical insurance work when we travel back to the US?
Oh, that's a really interesting question because the mutuelle that I have will cover, it will cover any kind of an emergency care in the US, but only at French scheduled rates. So when I travel back to the US, I take out a travel policy. It's not very expensive.
No.
Nope. Okay.
Let's see, what else? Okay, well, there's so many, it's just hard to keep, it's hard to keep up. Okay, I hear there's a housing shortage in Paris and it's hard to find a rental. Your opinion?
Well, it's near to impossible, but we do it every day. There's a huge housing shortage actually across the country. This has nothing to do with the cost of living, you understand. But we are able to find property for rent because we do this every day and we're working with the agents every day. And so we have access to information. It would be very difficult on your own to do it. Very, very difficult. Yeah. So it's not just the shortage, it's the way the agents work. Because I've been looking for myself for an apartment. For those of you who read my newsletter, I have to move out of my apartment in order for structural work to be done. And it's been really difficult to find an apartment, but I have found one online that I like, and I am going to visit it tomorrow. But it took an act of God to get the agent to respond to me to make that happen. And they just are, they don't care because they're so busy. So it is hard, but we do it.
Okay, I'm trying to find questions on topic. We have a lot of questions that aren't on the cost of living topic. And
Oh,
we
that's okay.
Okay. Let me see what else would be interesting to the group. Bear with me because there's a whole bunch and I'm trying to find one that's more about healthcare. Okay, hang on. Okay, now this is completely off subject, but a question from Mike is, what about pets?
What about them?
What about pets?
France loves pets. Dogs are everywhere. You can take them everywhere. It's easy enough to bring them over. They have to have certain, vaccinations and chips and stuff like that. But there's no reason that you can't bring a pet. Everybody does it.
And I will add, if you're renting an apartment, you are entitled to have a pet.
That's right. Yes, the landlord cannot deny you the pet, but you do not want to note that you have a pet when you're seeking an apartment because they will choose someone else that doesn't have a pet.
That doesn't have a pet,
That's
exactly.
right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're getting quite a few visa questions. Do we want to talk just a little bit about getting a visa, specifically a visitor visa?
Sure. Up. I pulled that down. I hope that's okay, you guys.
Yeah. So Adrian, do you want to just talk a little bit about the process of getting a visitor visa?
Oh, the process is quite simple, actually. You go onto the website, the official website, and you schedule a consultation. You just book a consultation, not a consultation, but an appointment to get your visa. There are 3 basic requirements in order to get your visa. You have to show that you can support yourself with what's based on French minimum wage, which is about 17,000 euros a year. You have to show that you have healthcare coverage, which is really just a healthcare policy. We have health insurance contacts for you to get the policy with. And you have to show that you have a place to live. And that can be the catch-22, but our clients know that we can provide them with that answer. So that fixes that, and that's how easy it is. And once you've done that, and you've gone to your appointment and you've brought all that paperwork, then you have your visa in 2 to 3 weeks, and then you can come to France.
Yeah, and I just added a link to the official website on the chat.
Oh, great. Okay.
How long is the visa good for?
Well, the visa you're going to apply for is probably going to be a 1-year renewable visitor visa that is renewable in France.
Okay, we have a dental related visit. How much does it cost for dental visits or dental insurance in France?
Oh, I just went to the dentist yesterday, as a
Okay.
matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I had what's called a contrôle. So they took all the x-rays. And I had what's called a détartrage. So that's where you have a cleaning. And I think she charged me 126 euros, which my health insurance policy will reimburse me for.
Yep, it's really inexpensive.
And they're very good, and everything's very modern and amazing.
I'm thinking that sounds more expensive than my dentist in Nice.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
But I didn't complain.
Oh. We've got another question about closing costs for purchasing a 1-bedroom apartment in Nice. That's a bit specific, but
Well, the closing costs are the notarial taxes and fees, which range between 7 and 7.5%. You can't negotiate it. There's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to expect it. So if you're looking to buy a property and if you're working with us and our fees are approximately 3%, we pretty much just assume that between 10 and 11%
mhm.
of the price of the property is what you're going to need in closing costs. In cash, you can't mortgage that amount.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about inheritance tax? We're really getting like lots of lots of
I
varied
know, I'm
questions
looking
here.
at these
If I
too.
buy an apartment in Paris, what is the inheritance tax if I leave the apartment to my daughter?
The taxes, that is a very complicated question.
Mhm.
Okay, just know everything in France is complicated. Okay, the French are not happy if it's not complicated. Okay, because it's not intellectual enough. So anything related to tax is complicated. But when you buy a property, if you set the structure of it up correctly, your kids could end up not paying any inheritance taxes at all. So in fact, this past year, I transferred the title of my Paris apartment to my daughter so that when I die, she will have it. It's hers. She will pay no inheritance tax whatsoever. So there are ways to fix this when you plan ahead, which is the key to everything. The key to taxation in France is planning ahead. We work with a couple of tax advisors. Jonathan Hadida is one of them. Benjamin Pick is another. And they can really help you work that out before you make the move so that you do everything correctly from the get-go. That's what I would recommend doing. But you guys got to get over like fear of taxes, okay? Because quite honestly, overall, you're going to end up spending a lot less in tax living in France, believe it or not. You're going to spend a lot less on everything else, and you're going to have a much higher quality of life. And you can't take it with you anyway. You're not going to be, there's no point in lining your coffin with it. So you might as well enjoy it the rest of your life. And when it comes to this fear, like don't let fear get in the way of your move. Put fear of tax on the shelf, okay, and forget about it. It's life is not about money. I mean, it just isn't. It's about living and enjoying yourself. If we knew how long we were going to live and how much money we had, we could probably be really smart about how much we spend, right? But we can't. So, you can trust me that you will end up spending a lot less in tax, just property tax alone. Property tax alone is going to save you a huge amount of money. It's incredible. Now, I pay a lot in income tax here. I pay a lot in URSAF because I have earnings here. So if you're earning money here, yes, you're going to have a much higher tax basis, but I don't care because it goes to all these other things. I have amazing healthcare. We have an incredible infrastructure. I have an incredible quality of life, and I need a lot less money to live off of. If you've got kids, their education is free of charge all the way through college. I mean, I can't complain, quite honestly. Patty, find me some other good ones.
Um, I like this one. Patty, is that your view? Amazing.
Yes, it is. That is Patty's view, and it is
That's my
amazing.
view, guys.
She's at
Okay,
peace.
that's a view from my apartment.
That's right.
We did have a cost of living question, and Adrian, I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this.
Yeah.
It's based on the fact that we know many of the clients we work with are of retirement age. And we have a
Right.
question about the cost for, if you have children, the cost for activities, camps, and childcare. But you raised your daughter and you probably have some idea of
I have no idea
No
about that.
idea.
I did
Okay.
raise my daughter here, but I never used childcare.
Okay.
She was old enough to, you know, the kids here are very independent. You have to understand. She was taking the bus to school at the age of 10 by herself. They grow up in an environment where they can be very independent and they need a lot less babysitting. I don't think I ever hired a babysitter. Can't remember that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I'm assuming this is a visa related question. How much savings do you need to show other than your social security and pension income?
Only
And
that you've got at least 17,000 euros a year.
yeah, for just French minimum wage,
Yeah,
equivalent of French
French
minimum wage.
minimum wage.
All you need.
It's not a lot of money. No. They just want to make sure you're not going to be on the street. The American passport is the golden passport. They really understand that Americans contribute to this society and are not here to use and abuse it. So
Mhm.
they dole out the passports, the visas not the passports, but the visas very easily.
Mhm.
We had one person recently that was denied. Remember that one, Patty, very
Yes, I
recently?
do. I do.
It's the only person I know of who's
Yep.
ever been denied.
Yeah, and we don't know the exact circumstances.
No, but I think it had to do with a certain kind of paperwork.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. How is it meeting people and being a part of the community?
How easy is it?
How is it? Just how is it meeting people and being a part of the
Oh,
community?
you're going to make more friends than you've ever had in your whole life inside of 2 months. Make your bet. The American community, especially in the cities where there are good American communities, is very closely knit. And what happens is you end up meeting people who are just like you. They think just like you. They've been aspiring to be in France just like you. They're going to go through all the trials and tribulations just like you. And so no doubt you will literally make more friends than you've ever had. And anybody who's on this webinar who's spent any time here probably already knows that. When we hold our après-midi gatherings, friends are made just there immediately,
Mhm.
sitting next to somebody talking to them. I hear the stories all the time. It's fantastic. You know, it's funny. I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for 14 years, and I can count all my friends on one hand, literally, because I
Mhm.
couldn't relate to the people in Knoxville, Tennessee, for one
Right.
reason or another. I can count that many people that are my friends on my block in Paris.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
by
Right. Right.
comparison. Uh-huh.
So now I'm going to ask a tax related question. If you get
Okay.
pension from the US, do you have to pay taxes again in France?
Nope. You do not pay tax in France on your retirement income from the US.
Yeah.
Period. No, not your dividends, not your social security, not your pensions. Nope. You pay it to the US, but you don't pay it to France.
And after you're in France on your long stay visa as a resident, when can you apply for your carte vitale?
After 90 days.
Yep.
You might not get it after 90 days. So it might take you a few more months to get, but you can apply for it after 90 days. That's why you need the
Exactly.
first year. You need the first year with health insurance, for sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
We had another question about um, access on public transportation for people with reduced mobility.
Oh, like on the buses?
On the buses, trams, metro,
Well, the
etc.
buses are all designed for wheelchair access.
Yep.
The buses are fabulous.
Mhm.
The trains are a little more complicated, but they do have service for people in wheelchairs
Mhm.
to put them on and off. So
Mhm.
it's not difficult to do. Right. But the bus is real easy.
Yeah, the buses are probably best. In Paris, the metro is terrible because most of them have stairs.
Right, yeah.
In
The
Nice,
metro is not mobility friendly, that's for sure.
in Nice, the tram is very accessible.
Oh, right, because you just go right on, it's at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. Let's see, you might even see something interesting as you're scrolling through. They're
I'm
just
looking.
and actually, we had somebody raise their hand, but I don't see it up any longer. We have a question about mortgage rates.
Mortgage rates are quite a bit less in France than they are in the US. They're hovering around 4.5%.
Right.
But to get a mortgage in France, you pretty much need to be under the age of 60 and be salaried.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's not possible for someone older. It's just that it's, they, the banks, it's all about risk assessment. And it's all about there's a life insurance policy that's mandatory with the loan, and the premiums become prohibitive after the age of 75. So they want they want your mortgage to end by the time you're 75. So if you're over 60, you're not as good a candidate for them. It's just that simple. But it's not that it's impossible.
Another interesting question, is there a language requirement for living in France?
There is no language requirement to get your carte de séjour, visiteur. And there is now a new language requirement for the carte de résident, which is the tenure card that you can't get anyway until you have renewed your carte de séjour for 5 years. And it used to be that if you were over the age of 60 or 65, you didn't have to take the test. But I
That
believe now
has not changed. It has not
that's the
changed
same.
yet. Nothing official yet. Mm-mm.
Oh, you mean it's just in conversation?
Yeah, nothing's official yet on that change of the language requirement if you're over 65.
Hmm.
Um,
I applied for citizenship. And I had to take the language test with a B1 level, which is it's not very high. And I did manage to pass. So that was good. Now I'm waiting to hear for my interview, and hopefully I will not be denied. We'll see.
yep. Oh, I just scrolled past a question I was gonna ask. We had a question about, do we provide recommendations for individuals who are looking for the insurance required for their long stay visas?
We do.
We do.
We have several brokers you can work with who can help you. We have all the resources you could possibly need. We have them all. It's what we do.
And they're
Yeah.
on, just check our website.
Oh yeah, they're on our site.
On
I
the
see one
partners
question.
page.
Are there any advantages to giving up US citizenship versus keeping dual citizenship?
Okay.
I don't recommend giving up US citizenship if you can help it. The only people who do that, it's because they want to save themselves huge sums of money. But you've got dual citizenship, so there's really not much reason to give up the US citizenship, except for money. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that, I think, in an upcoming financial forum.
Oh yeah, actually we are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, stay tuned on our newsletters for when the forum is coming up. Here's a question. Do I need to leave the country to renew your 1-year visitor visa? Nope, you need to renew it in France.
Another one is, as the spouse of a European citizen, are the requirements for applying for healthcare the same as someone with a long stay visa? And I believe the answer is yes. I still think it's after 90 days resident, you can apply.
Right. But a spouse still has to get a visa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here's one. Are you able to select your own doctors and dentists? Of course you can. I want everybody to go to doctolib.fr, doctolib.fr. You can go online, find any kind of doctor you want, make an appointment immediately online. It's an amazing system. Incredible. The healthcare system in France is beyond incredible. I really have had fantastic care from start to finish in every situation. It's been, and very inexpensive. It's silly inexpensive. It's almost a joke. When I took my cousin, well, I didn't take her, the ambulance took my cousin to the hospital when she broke her leg. And the ambulance driver said, I'm really sorry, but you have to pay for the ambulance. And I said, so how much is it? I'm glad you guys are mostly sitting down, because he said 67 euros. I handed him cash. That's it. Okay. When was the last time you had an ambulance in the United States for 67 euros?
Though I just answered this directly on the chat, this would be good for the group. I heard it's difficult to find a doctor who will see you in France. Any truth to that?
Of course, that's complete. That's, excuse my language, I could say BS. Okay. I'll tell you the only doctors that seem to be scarce, dermatologists. Getting a dermatologist sometimes can take an act of God. Wouldn't you agree, Patty?
Yes, 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 yes.
Otherwise, there's really no problem.
Unless you're in a medical desert area, if you're out in the
That's
countryside,
true.
it can be more difficult, but we would recommend you live in a more, I hate to say recommend as urban environment, but you want to look at your access to healthcare when you're deciding where to live in France.
Well, of course, if you're over the age of 60, you want to make sure you've got access to the healthcare immediately. And, holding yourself up in a house in the countryside is not a good idea. So if you're in any of the urban areas, you've got access to everything. Nice
Right.
in particular, every building has a doctor's office in it. It's amazing.
No,
Don't
it
you
is amazing. I think there's more than one in my building.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've walked like two buildings down, there's more doctors and more doctors.
Mhm. Yeah, and pharmacies, of course, zillions of pharmacies.
Right,
And
right.
pharmacists are basically trained as almost as high as physicians, and they don't normally prescribe exactly, but you can walk in there and say, I've got this problem, and they will definitely help you with it and give you some sort of treatment. They do like to recommend homeopathic and herbal remedies before chemical, which of course in the US pharmacies aren't able to do that because big pharma won't let them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and that segues into another question we have. Does the healthcare system provide alternative care, such as chiropractors, naturopaths, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. I see a naturopath. I do pay for that myself, though. I don't turn it into my
They may not
my
be covered by
job.
your French healthcare.
No, but my osteopath is, because
Mhm.
my general practitioner gave me a prescription to go to the osteopath, and that's all covered.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. They really think outside of the box on these issues. Mm-hmm.
And we've just had some questions about the cost of living in specific areas. And I just think it's good to point out, as you did during the presentation, is the biggest variance is the price of housing.
Right. Everything else is, no matter where you're living, is going to be similar. I mean, it could be that the restaurants in a small town are a little less expensive than the restaurants in Paris, for example. But in fact, property tax could be higher in the country than it is in the city, because the urban environments have more population to support the tax base. So, but generally speaking, cost of housing is the only biggest difference.
Well, and you experienced that too in Nice, because your property taxes in Nice on a much less expensive apartment are about the same as they are in Paris.
No, they're like 2/3.
They're 2/3. Okay, but they're still, it seems
Yeah,
like the
they're still a
taxes are a
little
little
bit
higher
higher
in
in
Nice.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
than they
still a
are.
little bit higher in Nice than they are in
Right.
Paris if you were to compare it on a per square meter basis, right? I have one person here says, I'm Jewish. Is France anti-Semitic? I'm Jewish too. I know more Jews in France than I ever knew in the United States. I don't feel any anti-Semitism myself at all, at least not from the French. That does not mean that there isn't a very large Muslim community. And of course, we all know what's happening in Israel and Palestine with Palestinians. And that hasn't been good worldwide. But I'm from New Orleans, and David Duke, who is a Ku Klux Klan master and the biggest anti-Semite I can think of, came from my mother's neighborhood. So I don't know. But it's not something that we feel on a daily basis. And I live in the Marais, and the Marais is known to be a Jewish community, especially around Rue de Rosier. And I have not personally witnessed anything. That does not mean that it doesn't exist. It's everywhere.
Adrian, this is a better question for me. How much does wine cost?
Okay, Patty. Patty knows how much wine costs. She
It
is a glass of
varies.
every
No,
meal.
the price varies. I actually, the one wonderful thing about living in France is you can order wine directly from the vineyard. And there's this well-known vineyard outside of Aix-en-Provence called Chateau Lacoste. And they recently had a sale where one of their white wines was less than €5 a bottle, and that included shipping.
Right. So for the quality.
And so it's a very high quality wine, but you can spend €5 a bottle, or you can spend €50 a bottle.
I paid for a bottle of French wine in New Orleans when I was there a couple months ago for it was $25 for what I would have paid €5 for in the grocery store. Uh-huh.
Right.
And
Right.
wine is usually cheaper than my Perrier.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're down to 2 minutes. I love this question. How important is it to learn French? I am stupid with languages. Okay, so here's the truth. Okay, learning French and speaking French is going to make your experience a whole lot better. Okay, if you are living in a remote place where the French mostly do not speak English, then you're going to have trouble without it. If you're in Paris or Nice or most of the more urban areas, you're going to find a very international community, and French isn't going to be quite as important. But there is no doubt that you will have a better experience if you learn French, and at least learn some survival French so that you can, show them that you're making an effort. So, if you're not already hooked up with the Alliance Française, now's the time. And we're down to 1 minute. Should we answer one more question? Or Melissa or Renee, do you have something you'd like to add here?
Well, I think we'd like to add, Adrian, that I think you've motivated almost everybody on this particular webinar to take next steps to moving to France. There's no one that I've ever met who is more positive about this potential experience, and I hope that many of us are going to take advantage and give you a call and have lunch and have a meeting and learn about just an amazing way to just maybe make some changes in our lives at a later point and do something new.
Renee,
So
listen, it's really easy. Okay, it's easy to be positive because I've been enjoying life here for 30 years. And we have literally helped thousands of people do this. And we talk to people every single day. Patty's doing consultations. I'm doing them.
Mhm.
Jennifer Peret's doing them. And we hear everybody's stories. We know what everybody's going through.
Yeah.
And we know that it is a big challenge to make this move. But you will never regret doing this, never. And it's not about the money. You guys have to just get over this. It's really about enjoying your life, but know that it is going to cost you a lot less. If you have 4,000 or 5,000 euros a month to live off of, you will live like a king or queen.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I don't know, Patty, your cost of living is about that much?
No, nowhere near.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. Uh-uh.
Right, right. And do you see that view she's got?
Yeah,
It's
see that
fantastic.
view? No, yeah, no, nowhere near. Um,
No,
what's my cost of living? I don't know. I mean,
$3,000 a month is my
on the
guess.
high end, it would be like a little, I don't know, 2,400. That would be on the high end.
Right. Uh-huh.
That
This
would
isn't a
include some
joke. These are not
travel and
lies.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is for real.
this is
Um,
for real.
this is for real. And
I'm gonna
so
add just that moving to France was the smartest decision I ever made. My friends all thought I was crazy. And like Adrian, I came for a year or two and I'm here 9 years later.
yep, that's how. So just know if you move, you're never going back. Okay.
Right,
Just get that through
exactly.
your head right now that
Mhm.
once you're over here, you will never have a reason to go back.
Yeah.
And on that note, Renee, Melissa, Patty, I'd like to thank, and
Thank
all of
you.
you, I'd like to thank you all for having come and participated in this. It will be on YouTube. You'll pass it to your friends. And in order to contact us, just go to adrianleeds.com and you'll, have fun on our website, look at all the resources and let us know when you're ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a
Bye-bye.
great rest of day. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Au revoir.